Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favourite witches. Hello, dear witch, and buckle up because we have an amazing episode today. I'm so glad to share it with you, to share space with you, and that you're here with me. Because, to be very honest, when I'm recording these episodes where I'm not interviewing somebody else, I literally imagine a person just, I don't know, there's no like facial features, but there is a person in like generally a car, and it's almost like I'm talking to them, and that's you. Whether you're in the car or you're putting on your makeup or you're hanging out the washing or you're on a walk or whatever you're doing, working with me, chatting at you in the background, keeping you company. I have this vision that sits in my head. I'm not just chatting into a laptop computer, right? And it's really beautiful, and I love that we get to do this all the time. I won't lie, I am recording this like 15 hours before it goes live. So this is very unlike me. I usually record, edit, schedule things out way in advance. And I do that very pedantically because it's a way to mask, typical ADHD symptoms. So I'm having flashbacks of high school, staying up to all hours of the night to get a project done. It's very nerve-wracking and I don't like it. But I guess that's what happens when it's been school holidays, which is what it has been here. And now it's not, but my in-laws are visiting, so it's kind of still a little bit hectic. Today is one of our Hana Help Me episodes of the podcast where I answer your questions. If you have a question for the podcast, please send it to me. The email address is info@suburbanwitchery.com. So I'm sure you know, because you've probably seen the title of this podcast. Don't lie, I know you looked at it, which says, what is a closed practice? But that is not actually all that we're talking about. That was just the energy distilled into a sentence, which is really, titles are hard, guys. It's really hard. The question, once you hear it, I'm sure you'll understand why I wanted to really hone in on closed practices, but that is not the extent. This is going to be much richer, and there's a lot more to it. Now, this question comes in from Anonymous, and they say, Hana, help me. As an eclectic witch, how do you make sense of incorporating different elements from different traditions, ancestries, or deities from different pantheons? Example, even with no desire to follow a Hellenistic path and with no Mediterranean ancestry, I feel strongly called to some Greek deities. I also feel a pull to certain Norse deities, which more closely align to my heritage, but don't feel they work together. Thank you, Anonymous. And the question beneath this question is really about, is this allowed? Is this okay? Is this appropriate? Are these traditions closed? Where are the rules? Where are the limitations? And it's an excellent question, and we're going to get into it. So just so you know, there are religions and certain sects within religions that are closed. This means that you cannot be that religion, and you cannot practice that religion or tradition unless you have been initiated. It's a very real topic, especially in the witchcraft and spiritual community. We need to be aware of cultural and religious appropriation and do our part not to partake in it. Now, of course, there are people who don't care about this stuff. They're like, ethics, what are they? And just do their own thing. And personally, I think this can be very dangerous. Depending on the religion or the practice that you are jumping into without the proper initiations, the proper knowledge, proper allowance, proper welcome. There are many spirits, deities, and ancestors and other sorts of things that can really fuck you up if you do this the wrong way. So there's a little bit of caution that we need to throw down with this stuff. Like, it's not just you're going to offend people. There's spiritual implications as well. So To be closed, the religion must be considered closed by the elders, and the people that practice the religion must still be existing and practicing the religion. This is key. When we are looking at things, are there people still practicing this religion? Are they still existing and practicing it in today's world? I'm going to use an example of ancient Egyptian religions, often known as Kemeticism. Because, fun fact, Egypt was previously known as Kemet. It wasn't always called Egypt. Now, there has been a contemporary revival of this ancient Egyptian religion, which has arisen along with other neo-pagan religious movements. It happened around about the 70s. So yes, people still practice ancient Egyptian religions, but through a modern take. It's not a religion that has lasted all of those times through the ages with a consistent group of people. It's sort of died back and now it's almost been reignited a little bit. So people who practice Kemeticism or Kemetics do not consider themselves direct descendants of the ancient Egyptian religion, but are recreating or restoring it. Sticking on that vein, the ancient Egyptian civilization dated to around about 3100 BC to 332 BC and existed long before the Greek or Roman civilizations. That doesn't make it better, that doesn't make it worse, and the fact that people stopped practicing for a while and then came back to it has no bearing on whether it calls to you or not. This is something that you can follow if you like. If we are talking about the oldest religion in the world, that is likely Hinduism. However, as I'm sure you're aware, Hinduism is still very real and alive in today's world. In fact, Hinduism is the third largest religion in the world behind Christianity and Islam. However, the difference here is the Hindu belief is totally non-exclusive and accepts all other faiths and religious paths. In fact, there's an ancient Vedic text that says, God or truth is one, and wise people refer to it by very many names. Now, for ones that are closed, we have things like Vodou, Santeria, Candomblé, Palo, Obeah. Now, we can look at something like Reiki as a potentially closed practice. It's a closed system that requires someone to initiate you or to attune you. It is open for anyone to learn, but you can't just one day go, you know what, I'm going to be my own Reiki practitioner, teach everything to myself. So Reiki is a traditional therapy, if you're not aware, with roots in Buddhist and Eastern traditions. Japanese in origin, Reiki is translated as universal life energy. But only Reiki masters can teach Reiki to others. So I would class it as a closed practice, personally. We then have Macumba, Umbanda, the Romani religion, Baltic paganism, certain sects of Hinduism. We did talk about Hinduism before, but there are certain sects that are definitely closed. Mayan, Aztec, various Chinese folk traditions and or religions. So certain sects of Shintoism, though it has been heavily debated that all should be closed to outsiders. Korean folk religion. Now granted, Korean folk religion, for example, if we just stop here, if you are Korean and you want to get into Korean folk religion, then yes, by all means. But me as a white person, no, I'm gonna steer clear, right? That is not my path. So a lot of this, and what I'm trying to get at, is understanding the religion, right? Reiki, yeah, if I want to do that, I would go and find a teacher. But I wouldn't for Korean folk religion, personally. So you need to understand yourself, your roots, where you live, who you are, what's in your family. So there are various African theologies, Native American and First Nation spiritualities. Obviously, it's a very broad field. But nearly all oppressed Indigenous religions I would consider as off limits. Indigenous Australian, Pacific Island, etc. Yazidi, absolutely closed. Abrahamic faiths. I bet you this one is a little bit of a shock. Islam, Judaism, Christianity, right? There are some of these that are absolutely no. Some areas of those faiths that you just can't walk into. But even Christianity, a lot of us who come from Christianity are like, no, anyone can be a Christian. Can they? is anyone a Christian if they just say they are? Because most of them have requirements. You have to be baptized, or you have to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior into your heart. You have to do this, you have to do that. Some areas of Christianity or Catholicism, you have different rites and initiations you have to go through in order to even take communion. So yes, absolutely there is an element of being closed there. Zoroastrianism, Indigenous Peruvian and Quechua, Strigoria and Stregoneria. So Strigoria is Italian witchcraft. If you have Italian heritage, if your family is Italian and you feel drawn to this, then go and explore it. But if you're just like, hey, that religion looks really cool, no, we don't do that. Rastafarianism, shamanism. And there are some areas in places like the Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia that have closed indigenous religions for safety. So if you're of the ethnicity, yes, you can go and study and initiate. You don't have to live in that area unless they say so. But that is just a very brief little list of closed faiths. Did you notice that Greek is not listed there? Norse is not listed there. So modern Hellenism, which is Greek, is not a closed religion, and there are many communities that practice this around the world. It draws on ancient Greek beliefs, mythology, and rituals. Sometimes it's known as Hellenic polytheism or Hellenic paganism. People in Greece practice it, and people outside of Greece. Now, on the topic of Hellenism, there are people who state that it is closed. And there is a group of people who I would call purists, who say they're the only people who can practice certain things. They have to be white or this or that, and it's about your bloodline. But the ancient Greeks themselves did not care about people's bloodline. A lot of Egyptians practice Hellenism, and so did many non-Greeks, Romans as well. The religion was killed off, so therefore it's not closed. It hasn't continued through those ages. So if you do come across people who say it's a closed practice, it can be either a little bit ignorant, or it can come across as ignorant of the religion's history. There were mystery cults that were absolutely closed, but not on the basis of ethnicity or bloodline or anything like that. We know from history that this is a faith that spread throughout the world at one point. So, my dear, if you are feeling called to the Hellenistic path, regardless of whether you have Mediterranean ancestry, go for it. Absolutely go for it. I have specific podcast episodes on deities and how to get into working with deities, so definitely check those out. But there is nothing wrong with feeling drawn to that. So you can absolutely incorporate different elements from different traditions that are open and different deities outside your ancestry. If you also feel a pull to certain Norse deities, whether or not it aligns with your heritage, that is also fine. But as you've stated, you don't feel they work together, and I would agree. If you're working with deities from different pantheons, I wouldn't place them on the same altar. They might not want to be in the same room. You might have different times that you work with either of them. It's going to be a figure it out as you move forward with them type of deal. There is no one way to do it. But if you haven't worked with deities before, start with one. Start with the one that feels the strongest pull for you and go from there. You're allowed to experiment. As an eclectic witch, you can be eclectic. That is where you go, you know what, this feels right for me, and this feels right for me, and I'm going to bring them together with respect and with understanding. Make sure you're not pulling things just because they look cool or it feels good to you, but you don't have any understanding of where they come from. Do the research aspect. That is how you stay out of hot water, right? Look into it before incorporating it. If you don't know where the thing you're bringing in, the element from wherever, if you don't know where it comes from, why people do it, what the variations are, it's probably too early to be bringing it into your practice. Now, you did mention incorporating different things from different ancestries. So meaning that your ancestry, I'm presuming you mean your ancestry, doesn't align with what you're wanting to do. Again, with some things that's fine, with others it's not. If you are not Quechua, I would not recommend diving into the Quechua religion, because that would be cultural appropriation and spiritual appropriation. And I think if you are white, as a white person, I am very hyper aware of the damage that we can do to other people and marginalized people. And we will make mistakes. It does happen. We just need to be incredibly mindful and fix it when we fuck up. Speaking of ancestry, there is an ancestral summit coming up at the end of October. If you're listening to this after that point, just ignore. But I will be speaking on creating ancestral altars. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, there's a ton of other amazing people giving free classes on all sorts of things around connecting with your ancestors. And they're all from a variety of different paths. Definitely check it out. The link will be in the description for this episode. Lastly, you did mention you had no desire to follow a Hellenistic path, but you want to work with some Greek deities. That's okay. That's okay. A lot of questions that I get from folks and people coming to me for readings and those sorts of things, a lot of the time we're looking for permission because we're worried about getting it wrong. And as I'm sure you've heard me say before, sometimes getting it wrong is the best thing we can do, because obviously not where we're going to harm people, but we learn through mistakes so much better than we learn through getting it right. You're allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to experiment. It's spirituality, right? If you're not drawn to the Hellenistic religion, fine. There's no rules. This is not Christianity. Thank Goddess for that. Now, next week, my dearies, we will be chatting with Marshall, Witch of Southern Light, all about Marshall's newest book, which is called The Red Mother. The book is out now, ready for purchase. I highly recommend it, and I can't wait to share our discussion with you. And this month in the Suburban Witches Society, I have just put up the most glorious post all about astrocartography. If this is something you have any interest in learning about, you want to see this post. It goes into detail into what all of the lines mean, how it works, how we create this chart, how it's calculated, what it all means. It's very, very in-depth, plus with additional resources to read more if you wish to. If you're a little bit astro nerdy, you're going to want that resource. Again, it's in the Suburban Witches Society. We would love to have you there. Even if you sign up for a month, devour the content, and then jump out, which I'm pretty sure you won't do because it is so much fun in there. But it's absolutely worth your time. And I would love to put a face to the person I'm talking to. So definitely hit me up if you do, so I know who you are. So my dear, wherever you are in the world, whether you're in an area that is currently getting colder and you're enjoying all of the pumpkin spice lattes and cozy witch vibes, or even if you're on the other side of the world, like me, where it's getting hotter every day, you've got sweat dripping where it shouldn't, and you're emulating more of a New Orleans style of witch, like the Mayfair witches in that hot and humid, sticky environment. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're keeping magical, keeping cool or warm, and having a lovely, lovely time of it. I'll chat to you next week. Have you been searching for a safe space to connect with other witches and grow and develop and learn together? The Suburban Witches Society will bring you knowledge and friendships that are spiritually aligned, plus a whole heap of fun. You will get access to our private community Facebook group and group chat, which that chat pops off. There are monthly group calls, you get a reading with me, you can do Q&A, and we all just chat and hang out together. It's like a slumber party. You are welcome to wear your pajamas. This is not like fancy influencer witches on a Zoom call. We are very real over here. You can take a peek at behind the scenes episodes of the podcast that are uncut, and you get access to them before anybody else. There's a resources section where you get PDF downloads, you get access to classes that are not available to the public. Here is what one of our members, Brandy, has to say about her experience in the Suburban Witches Society. Signing up to the society has been the best present to myself. My witchy knowledge has exploded and I've forged some of the deepest friendships in this group. So come and join Brandy and everyone else in the Suburban Witches Society, meet your new witchy best friend, and get a little bit closer access to yours truly as well. I hope to see you there.